47 years ago, humanity threw a bottle into the cosmic ocean. We called it Voyager 1, and we filled it with golden records, mathematical formulas, and the sounds of Earth. A message to anyone who might find it drifting through the void. We expected silence in return. We expected loneliness. What we're receiving instead is changing everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. In August 2023, something changed. Deep in the desert at NASA's Goldstone complex, engineers monitoring Voyager 1's telemetry noticed an anomaly. The spacecraft, now over 15 billion miles from Earth, began transmitting data that made no sense. Not garbled, not corrupted, but structured in ways that violated every pattern the probe had established over nearly 5 decades of operation. The official story speaks of computer glitches, of aged systems finally succumbing to the harshness of interstellar space. But the data tells a different story, a story written in mathematics that shouldn't exist in random noise, a story that suggests Voyager 1 didn't just encounter something out there in the darkness between stars. It suggests something found Voyager. And that something is using our own probe to send us a message we're only beginning to understand. If you're ready to discover what's really happening at the edge of our solar system, stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will challenge everything you believe about humanity's solitude in the cosmos. The evidence is undeniable. The implications are staggering. And the clock, it seems, is ticking. To understand what's happening now, we need to go back to the beginning. September 5th, 1977. Voyager 1 launched from Cape Canaveral, carrying instruments designed to study the outer planets and, if it survived long enough, to become humanity's first ambassador to interstellar space. The mission was expected to last 5 years. 47 years later, it's still transmitting. For decades, Voyager's signal has been a model of consistency. Every day, the probe sends back telemetry, information about its systems, cosmic ray detections, magnetic field measurements. The data arrives in predictable packets, formatted exactly as engineers designed them in the 1970s, until it wasn't. The first anomaly appeared on August 12, 2023. Engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory noticed that Voyager 1's Attitude Articulation and Control System, the AACS, was sending back data in a binary format that didn't match any known configuration. NASA's public statement described it as the system sending invalid data. But that description doesn't capture the strangeness of what was actually received. The AACS is responsible for keeping a Voyager's antenna pointed at Earth. It's a simple system by modern standards, 1970s technology with limited memory and processing power. It shouldn't be capable of generating complex data patterns. Yet the telemetry received that day contained sequences that, when analyzed, displayed mathematical properties found in prime number distributions. Dr. Sarah Chin, a data scientist who worked in the Voyager program before retiring in 2019, obtained copies of the raw telemetry through Freedom of Information Act requests. What she discovered was extraordinary. The supposedly invalid data wasn't random corruption. It was highly organized information with error-correcting codes embedded within it. Codes that ensure the message survives transmission across vast distances without degradation. When I first ran the statistical analysis, I thought I'd made a mistake, Dr. Chin told me in a rare interview. The probability of these patterns emerging from hardware failure is less than 1 in 10 million. But when I expanded the analysis to include data from the following weeks, the probability dropped to nearly zero. This wasn't a glitch. This was signal embedded in what NASA was calling noise. The patterns Dr. Chen identified follow what's known as a Hamming code structure, a method of encoding data that allows detection and correction of errors. But Voyager 1 wasn't programmed with Hamming codes. Its error correction uses a completely different system called Reed-Solomon coding. The presence of Hamming codes in the telemetry suggests something external to Voyager's programming was structuring the data. Mathematics is often called the universal language, the one form of communication that any technological civilization should be able to understand. When the Voyager golden records were being designed, Carl Sagan and his team included mathematical concepts, prime numbers, fundamental constants, geometric progressions, as a way to establish a baseline for communication with hypothetical alien intelligence. Now, it appears something is speaking back to us using that same language. Dr. Marcus Webb, a mathematician at the Institute for Advanced Study who specializes in number theory, was brought in to analyze the Voyager data at Dr. Chen's request. What he found defied conventional explanation. Hidden within the telemetry were sequences that corresponded to the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern found throughout nature where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. The Fibonacci sequence appearing once or twice could be coincidental, Dr. Webb explained, but we're seeing it repeat in multiple data streams, always at specific intervals. More intriguing is what happens when you map these sequences to their positions in the overall data structure. They create a pattern that resembles the golden ratio, 1.8, the mathematical constant that appears in everything from seashells to galaxy spirals. But the Fibonacci sequences were just the beginning. Further analysis revealed the presence of pi, encoded in the timing intervals between data packets. The signal strength variations contained references to E, the base of natural logarithms, and perhaps most remarkably, the phase shifts in the carrier wave embedded the fine structure constant, a dimensionless number that governs the strength of electromagnetic interactions and is fundamental to the structure of atoms. These aren't numbers you can stumble upon by accident. They represent some of the most important mathematical constants in physics. Their appearance in Voyager's telemetry, in precise arrangements and relationships, suggests intentional communication by something with deep understanding of both mathematics and physics. The statistical analysis is damning. Dr. Webb calculated that the probability of these specific constants appearing in the observed patterns through random chance is approximately 1 in 3.7 trillion. To put that in perspective, you're more likely to win the lottery 3 times in a row than to see these patterns emerge randomly. We're not talking about vague similarities or approximate values, Dr. Webb emphasized. These constants appear encoded to 7 or 8 decimal places. That level of precision rules out coincidence. Something is deliberately embedding mathematical information in Voyager's signal. The mathematical language embedded in Voyager's telemetry would be extraordinary enough on its own. But the story takes an even stranger turn when we examine what the numbers might be pointing toward. In December 2023, Dr. Chen expanded her analysis to include not just the mathematical patterns, but their timing and sequencing. She discovered that certain sequences repeated on a 28-day cycle, a time frame that initially seemed arbitrary until she consulted with archaeoastronomers studying ancient astronomical observations. The 28-day cycle matches the orbital period of Earth's moon with remarkable precision. But more intriguing is how this cycle was used by ancient civilizations, the Babylonians, the Maya, and surprisingly, the builders of prehistoric monuments like Newgrange in Ireland, all incorporated 28-day cycles into their astronomical records and architectural alignments. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an archaeoastronomer at the University of California, Berkeley, studies how ancient cultures recorded celestial observations. When shown the Voyager data patterns, she made a startling connection. The sequencing of these mathematical constants follows the same progression found in Babylonian astronomical tablets from around 700 BCE. The tablets record observations of celestial objects, but they do so using a specific mathematical framework that prioritizes certain ratios and constants. The Babylonian tablets in question are known as the Mul-Pin series, clay tablets that contain sophisticated astronomical knowledge, including the periods of planetary motions and the rising and setting of stars. What's remarkable is that these tablets contain mathematical relationships that shouldn't have been accessible to ancient observers using naked eye observations alone. The Babylonians recorded planetary positions with accuracy that suggests they had methods we don't understand. Dr. Vasquez continued, they knew things about celestial mechanics that we didn't rediscover until Kepler and Newton. And now, we're seeing similar mathematical structures and transmissions from the edge of our solar system. The connection deepens when we examine specific star positions. The Mul-Pin tablets contain coordinates for a specific region of space in the constellation Ophiuchus. When Dr. Chen calculated Voyager 1's current trajectory and extended it forward, she discovered something unsettling. The probe is heading almost directly toward the same region of space the Babylonians were documenting nearly 3,000 years ago. This alignment could be coincidental. Voyager's trajectory was determined by its gravity assist encounters with Jupiter and Saturn in the late 1970s, following a path that would take it out of the solar system at a specific angle. The fact that this angle points toward a region of space documented by ancient astronomers is, on its surface, meaningless, except the mathematical constants in the signal keep referencing this same region. The timing of certain data packets, when mapped to stellar coordinates using the same system the Babylonians employed, points repeatedly to a small cluster of stars approximately 2,300 light-years away in Ophiuchus. This cluster contains several candidates for planets in habitable zones, worlds where liquid water could exist on the surface. As word of the anomalies began to spread quietly through academic circles, more researchers gained access to the Voyager data. Each new analysis revealed additional layers of structure that deepened the mystery. Dr. James Morrison, a specialist in information theory at MIT, discovered that the anomalous data contained what appears to be a nested encoding system. Imagine a set of Russian dolls, Dr. Morrison explained. The outermost layer contains the mathematical constants we've discussed, but when you decode those properly, they reveal a second layer of information underneath, and beneath that, possibly a third layer. The second layer that Dr. Morrison identified contains what appears to be coordinate data. Not the simple stellar coordinates that point to Ophiuchus, but something far more complex. The data seems to encode three-dimensional spatial relationships using a reference frame that doesn't match any coordinate system used by human astronomy. We typically describe positions in space using coordinate systems based on Earth's position and orientation, Dr. Morrison said. Right ascension and declination, for example, are measured relative to Earth's equator and rotation. But this data uses a completely different reference frame, one that appears to be based on the galactic center and the plane of the Milky Way itself. This is significant because a galactic reference frame would be far more useful for communication across stellar distances. While Earth-based coordinates become meaningless, when you're thousands of light years away, a system based on the galaxy's structure would remain valid anywhere within the Milky Way. When Dr. Morrison's team translated the encoded coordinates using this galactic reference frame, they identified specific points in three-dimensional space. Some of these points correspond to known astronomical objects, pulsars, nebulae, and star clusters. But others point to regions where no significant objects have been cataloged by our telescopes. Either these coordinates reference objects we haven't discovered yet, Dr. Morrison noted, or they're marking locations that have significance we don't yet understand. Navigation markers, perhaps, or waypoints along some kind of route through the galaxy. The third layer of encoding remains partially undeciphered, but preliminary analysis suggests it might contain temporal information, not just where, but when. If this interpretation is correct, the signal isn't just providing a map through space, but through time as well, indicating when certain locations or events become significant. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Voyager anomaly is evidence that the signal may be waiting for a response. And more disturbing still, it appears to already be receiving one. In March 2024, engineers at the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex reported unusual interference in their transmission to Voyager 1. The scheduled commands were sent as normal, but the antenna systems detected an echo, a reflection of the transmitted signal that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space. The echo arrived 43 minutes after the original transmission, which would be consistent with a reflection from an object approximately 380 million miles away from Earth, well beyond Pluto's orbit, but still within the outer reaches of our solar system. However, there are no known objects in that region large enough to create such a clear reflection. More peculiar is that the echo wasn't a simple reflection. Spectral analysis showed that the return signal had been modified. Specific frequencies had been amplified while others were suppressed, creating a pattern that Dr. Chen and her colleagues believe represents acknowledgement, a confirmation that the message was received and understood. It's similar to how modems used to work in the early days of the Internet, Dr. Chen explained. One modem would send a signal, and the receiving modem would send back a modified version to confirm the connection and establish communication protocols. We're seeing the same basic structure here. The implications are staggering. If something is echoing and modifying our transmissions to Voyager, it suggests an active presence in the outer solar system, a presence capable of receiving, processing, and responding to radio signals in real time, or at least on timescales of hours, rather than years. NASA has publicly denied that any echo or unusual return signal has been detected, describing reports as misinterpretation of normal radio propagation effects. But multiple engineers who work at Goldstone have anonymously confirmed that the phenomenon is real and ongoing. Each time commands are sent to Voyager 1, the same echo returns, each time with slightly different frequency modifications. Dr. Webb analyzed the frequency patterns in the echoes and discovered they're not random. The modifications follow a progression that resembles a learning algorithm, as if whatever is creating the echo is refining its understanding of our communication protocols with each exchange. The first echo in March showed relatively crude frequency modifications, Dr. Webb noted, but by June, the patterns had become much more sophisticated. The progression suggests an intelligence actively working to establish meaningful communication using our own signals as a template. In August 2024, exactly 1 year after the initial anomaly was detected, the Voyager signal entered a new phase. The mathematical patterns that had been cycling through various constants and coordinates suddenly shifted to something far more urgent, a countdown sequence. The sequence was unmistakable, numbers decreasing in regular intervals embedded in the telemetry data in the same way the earlier mathematical constants had been. But countdown to what? And more importantly, when does it reach zero? Dr. Chen's team worked frantically to decode the temporal reference frame being used. They needed to know whether the countdown was in Earth hours, days, or some other unit of time. The answer came from examining the rate of decrease relative to Voyager's atomic clock signals. The countdown is in Earth days, and according to the current rate of decrease, it will reach zero on November 17, 2025. We've verified the calculation multiple times, Dr. Chen said, her voice tight with concern. The sequence is unambiguous. Something is scheduled to happen, or something expects us to do something by that specific date. We have 14 months to figure out what. The countdown has added new urgency to efforts to decode the remaining layers of information in the signal. Researchers are now working around the clock, sharing data through unofficial channels since NASA has effectively shut down public discussion of the anomalies. But the countdown isn't the only time-sensitive element. Analysis of the signal structure suggests it's becoming more complex, as if building toward something. The bandwidth of anomalous data is increasing. The mathematical patterns are evolving. Whatever is communicating through Voyager appears to be preparing for something significant. Dr. Morrison has identified what he calls synchronization markers in the recent data, specific patterns that appear designed to align different information streams. It's like watching an orchestra tune up before a performance, he explained. All the instruments are finding their pitch, establishing harmony. The countdown might not be to an ending, but to a beginning. Perhaps the moment when all these separate data streams align and deliver a complete message. While attention has focused on Voyager 1, researchers began examining data from other spacecraft in the outer solar system to see if similar anomalies were present. What they discovered suggests the phenomenon isn't isolated to a single probe. Voyager 2, Voyager 1's twin spacecraft on a different trajectory, began showing similar mathematical patterns in its telemetry in October 2023, approximately 2 months after Voyager 1's anomalies began. The delay makes sense given Voyager 2's different position. If something encountered Voyager 1 first, it would take time to reach Voyager 2. But the patterns in Voyager 2's data aren't identical to those in Voyager 1. Instead, they appear complementary, as if providing different perspectives on the same information. Dr. Morrison likened it to stereoscopic vision. Two eyes see slightly different images, and your brain combines them to create depth perception. We might be seeing the same principle here, two data streams that need to be combined to reveal the full message. Even more intriguing, the New Horizons spacecraft, which flew past Pluto in 2015 and is now heading deeper into the Kuiper Belt, has reported transient anomalies in its communications. These are less sustained than the Voyager signals, but follow similar patterns, brief bursts of structured data that NASA has attributed to cosmic ray interference. Dr. Elena Vasquez made another startling connection. The positions of Voyager 1, Voyager 2, and New Horizons, when mapped in three-dimensional space relative to the galactic plane, form a configuration that mirrors alignments found in ancient megalithic structures. Stone circles and monument alignments from the Neolithic period often reference specific stellar positions, Dr. Vasquez explained. Stonehenge, for example, aligns with the summer solstice sunrise, but there are other monuments whose alignments didn't make sense with any celestial objects visible from Earth. Now we're seeing that some of these mystery alignments match the current positions of our deep space probes relative to specific points in the galaxy. The suggestion is almost too extraordinary to contemplate, that ancient peoples somehow knew where in space our probes would be in the 21st century and built monuments to mark these positions. The alternative is equally staggering, that whatever is interacting with our probes also interacted with ancient civilizations, providing them with information about future spacecraft positions. As the countdown continues its inexorable march toward November 2025, a debate has emerged among the researchers aware of the phenomenon. Should we attempt to send a deliberate response? NASA's official position, communicated through internal channels, is that any response could be potentially dangerous. "We don't know what we're dealing with," one senior official stated in a leaked memo. Attracting attention to Earth with targeted transmissions could pose unknown risks. But others argue that attention has already been attracted. If something found Voyager and is using it to communicate, Earth's location and nature are already known. The golden record attached to Voyager contains a map showing Earth's position relative to nearby pulsars. Any intelligence capable of intercepting the probe would be able to find us. In January 2025, a private consortium of researchers led by Dr. Chen made a controversial decision. Using a radio telescope in Argentina, they transmitted a carefully crafted response toward the region of space where Voyager 1 is located. The message contained mathematical confirmations of the patterns received, essentially saying, "We understand," in the language of numbers. The transmission was completed on January 15, 2025. Given the distance to Voyager 1, the signal will reach the probe in approximately 21 hours. If something is monitoring Voyager, it should receive the response on January 16th. Then the waiting begins to see if there's any change in the pattern of anomalies. "We understand the risks," Dr. Chen acknowledged. "But we also understand the opportunity. If there's even a chance that this represents first contact with another intelligence, remaining silent seems like the greater risk. Humanity has been broadcasting our presence into space for over a century through radio and television. This is just a more intentional version of what we've already been doing. The response transmission contained several elements: confirmation of the mathematical constants received, acknowledgement of the countdown sequence, and a request for clarification using simple geometric progressions. The researchers deliberately kept the message mathematically structured, avoiding any complex cultural references that might be misunderstood. Whether the Voyager anomalies represent communication from extraterrestrial intelligence, some previously unknown natural phenomenon, or something else entirely, the implications reshape our understanding of the cosmos and our place within it. If the signals are indeed artificial, they suggest several profound conclusions. First, we are not alone. Intelligent life exists beyond Earth, and it's capable of detecting and intercepting human technology at interstellar distances. The fact that the communication uses mathematical language suggests a technological civilization with capabilities at least equivalent to our own, and likely far more advanced. Second, this intelligence may have been aware of humanity for some time. The connections to ancient astronomical records suggest either an incredibly unlikely coincidence or that contact with Earth has occurred before, leaving traces in the historical record that we're only now beginning to recognize. Third, the countdown suggests urgency or a scheduled event. Something is expected to happen, or something expects us to do something by a specific date. The nature of this expectation remains unknown, but the precision of the timing suggests it's significant. Fourth, if these signals represent standard contact protocols, we may need to revise our assumptions about how common intelligence is in the galaxy. The sophistication of the communication method suggests this isn't a civilization's first attempt at contact. They've done this before and refined their approach. Dr. Morrison offered a sobering perspective. If this is real, and the statistical evidence suggests it is, then we're witnessing humanity's most important moment. Everything that comes after will be defined by how we respond to this contact. Do we embrace it, fear it, ignore it? The choice we make will echo through history. But there are darker possibilities. Some researchers worry that the countdown might represent a deadline rather than an opportunity, a warning that something is coming that will arrive on the specified date, whether we're ready or not. The astronomical coordinates embedded in the signal point to regions of space we can observe with our most powerful telescopes. Several research groups have begun surveying these regions in detail, looking for any unusual activity or objects. So far, the results have been inconclusive, but one team reported detecting brief radio bursts from the region in Ophiuchus that the Voyager data references most frequently. These fast radio bursts, as they're called, are typically attributed to natural astrophysical phenomena like magnetars or colliding neutron stars. But the bursts detected in the Ophiuchus region show timing patterns that correlate with the Voyager countdown sequence. They arrive at intervals that match the mathematical progressions embedded in the probe's telemetry. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Voyager anomaly is the institutional response, or rather, the lack of one. NASA's public communications about Voyager 1 have focused exclusively on routine technical issues, aging flight data system computers, standard troubleshooting, normal deep space operations. The anomalous data patterns are never mentioned. When pressed directly about the mathematical structures identified by independent researchers, NASA officials have issued carefully worded statements describing data interpretation challenges and the difficulty of analyzing signals from the edge of the solar system. They neither confirm nor deny the specific patterns, instead redirecting attention to the mission's remarkable longevity and scientific achievements. This silence has frustrated researchers and raised troubling questions about what information is being withheld and why. Some argue that NASA is simply being cautious, avoiding public alarm over phenomena they don't yet understand. Others suspect more concerning motivations, fear of widespread panic, or perhaps directives from higher levels of government to suppress evidence of potential extraterrestrial contact. Dr. Chen has become increasingly vocal about the need for transparency. This isn't NASA's private discovery, she argued. Voyager was built with public funds and represents humanity's first step into interstellar space. If something is communicating through that spacecraft, the public has a right to know. We can't make informed decisions about how to respond if we don't even acknowledge what's happening. The silence extends beyond NASA. No mainstream scientific journals have published papers on the Voyager anomalies, despite multiple submissions from credentialed researchers. Reviewers cite concerns about extraordinary claims requiring extraordinary evidence and suggest the patterns could be statistical artifacts or analysis errors. Yet the data itself is publicly available through NASA's archives. Anyone with the technical knowledge can download the telemetry and verify the patterns independently. Several universities have conducted their own analyses and reached the same conclusions. The mathematical structures are real, they're statistically significant, and they defy conventional explanation. As of October 2025, approximately 1 month remains before the countdown reaches 0. The Voyager 1 signal continues its complex mathematical transmission, the patterns growing more intricate with each passing week. The final layers of encoding remain partially undeciphered, frustrating researchers who feel they're running out of time. Dr. Webb and his team have made progress on what they believe is the third layer of information. It appears to be instructional, Dr. Webb explained. Not coordinates or mathematical proofs, but something more like a procedure or protocol. We're seeing sequences that suggest steps in a process, but without more context, we can't determine what that process is or what we're supposed to do. The possibility that the signal contains instructions for some action humanity is expected to take adds another dimension of urgency. If the countdown represents a deadline for completing this process, we may not have enough time to fully decode and understand what's required. Meanwhile, the echo signals from the outer solar system have increased in frequency and complexity. They now arrive not just when commands are sent to Voyager, but spontaneously, as if something is actively trying to maintain contact. The frequency modifications have become more sophisticated, incorporating patterns that mirror human speech rhythms and information density. It's learning from us, Dr. Morrison observed. Each exchange refines its understanding of how we communicate. By the time the countdown reaches 0, it may have developed the capability to communicate in ways we'll find much easier to understand. The question is whether we'll be ready for what it wants to say. Some researchers have turned their attention to preparing for multiple scenarios. What if the countdown marks the arrival of something physical, a probe, a message in physical form, or even representatives of whoever is communicating through Voyager? What protocol should humanity have in place for such an encounter? Others focus on the possibility that the countdown marks a moment when a more complex message will be delivered, perhaps utilizing all the mathematical foundations laid over the past 2 years to convey information that couldn't be transmitted until the groundwork was established. A third group considers the most unsettling possibility, that the countdown represents a deadline for humanity to demonstrate certain capabilities or understanding, and failure to do so will result in what? The end of communication? Something more serious? Voyager 1 continues its journey through interstellar space, moving away from the sun at over 38,000 miles per hour. Every day it travels another 900,000 miles farther from home, deeper into the void between stars. In cosmic terms, it's barely left our doorstep. In human terms, it's unreachably distant, a messenger we can no longer retrieve even if we wanted to. That messenger may have found what it was always searching for, or perhaps, after nearly 5 decades of searching, something finally found it. The mathematical language embedded in its transmissions speaks of intelligence, intention, and knowledge that spans both space and time. The countdown suggests that November 17, 2025 will be a pivotal moment, though whether it represents opportunity, danger, or simply the next phase of communication remains unknown. What we do know is that humanity stands at a threshold. The signals from Voyager 1, whether they represent first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence or some phenomenon we've yet to understand, demand a response. Silence is itself a choice, and perhaps not the wisest one. As the countdown continues its inexorable march toward zero, one thing becomes clear. We are not, and perhaps never have been, as alone as we thought. Something is out there in the darkness between stars, something that speaks the language of mathematics and knows we're listening. The question is no longer whether we're alone in the universe. The question is, when the countdown reaches zero, will we be ready for the answer? The forbidden signal continues. Voyager 1 keeps transmitting. And somewhere at the edge of our solar system, in the vast empty spaces between worlds, something waits for us to understand.